Local community sport isn't just a matter of players lacing up their boots and running out onto the field each week. Behind the scenes, there is enormous support from sponsors and volunteers, which is essential to local sport. Perhaps the most important ingredient, however, is the funding and ongoing support from licensed clubs. This funding makes sport affordable and accessible to all who want to participate. Under the current community contribution scheme, licensed clubs in the ACT are legally obliged to give a certain amount of their revenue back to the community, whether it be to local sporting clubs or other community organisations.
In terms of a legal obligation in terms of return to the community, it's about 8%, but clubs give more than that, and they give about 12.5% of that.
CEO of Clubs ACT, Gwyn Rees, says the 48 licensed clubs in the ACT currently go beyond what is legally required. Whilst supporting the community as a whole, the major beneficiaries of the scheme are sporting groups.
Clubs broadly support the community, so there's over 1,000 groups supported, and about 70% of those would be sporting groups.
Two local sporting clubs that rely heavily on funding from licensed clubs are the Tuggeranong Valley Cricket Club and the Woden Valley Rams Rugby League Club.
So the Vikings group has been our major sponsor and supporter for over 25 years, I believe. So they're really an integral part of how our club came to be as it is today, as well as how our facilities came to be as good as they are today.
The Mawson Club are huge sponsors of ours, have been for over 10 years, and that's where we get the majority of our money from.
President of the Tuggeranong Valley Cricket Club, John Evans, says as well as the $15,000 they receive each year, their greatest support from the Vikings group is that of a fully employed curator.
The big financial benefit the club gets is through ground staff provided to the club. So those ground staff are preparing our wickets, and they have one full-time groundsman employed.
President of the Woden Valley Rams, Steve Hicks, says the club receives around $100,000 a year from licensed clubs. As well as the Mawson Club, the Rams also draw on support from the Tradies Group and the Hellenic Club. This money goes to a number of areas.
It goes towards registering the players, providing the players with gear to run out on the field, hiring training ovals and playing ovals.
In recent months, the ACT government has looked to tinker with the current community contribution model and divert funds into a more centralised model, where licensed clubs would have less say over where their money goes. With local sport benefiting under the current scheme, any changes could be potentially damaging. Steve Hicks started the petition to keep the scheme as it currently stands, and this received wider community support.
The ACT government was required to respond if we got more than 500 people signing it, and at last count I think it was upwards of 800 people.
If funding is diverted away from local sport, sport becomes more expensive to play and participation numbers may be impacted, having wider effects on society.
With a society that's worried about mental health and obesity and all those kind of things, and we hear that sport is an avenue to lessen the impact of those things, why are we taking money away from sport?
The importance of licensed clubs to local sport is clear. With large costs associated with running organised community sport, funding, wherever it comes from, is imperative. Sam Burge, Now UC News.